Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for your attendance. I want to start off with a question. How much conversion rate will your application lose for a delay in the loading page of 100 milliseconds? The answer to that is 7%. My name is Adi Mizrahi, and I'm here today to show you how you can improve your application in terms of conversion rate, traffic, and customer satisfaction. I work as a senior mobile developer at Cloudinary. I've been working there for over a year. I've been developing mobile apps for over 10 years now. Started my way back with Objective-C, climbed my way to Android Java, Android Kotlin, Swift, and recently Flutter. At my spare time, I write technical blog about the things I learn, because I believe that putting my thoughts into a paper make me understand the material better. I was also a lecturer for mobile system design at the university for 2 years. And lastly, which is something that I'm really proud of, I'm a passionate gamer. From PC to consoles, any game, I just love playing games. So before we get started, I want to give you the notion of why would we choose to develop a mobile application, why we become mobile developers. I understand that most of you know the mobile world, you live and breathe code, but why do we develop apps? What's so captivating about it? So I want to take a look at the following graph. On the left side, you can see that 66% of the internet traffic at December 2022, 2 months ago, was through mobile devices. If you add up to that the tablets, you get over 68% of the internet traffic is through mobile. Mobile surpassed desktop. Most people choose today to use the internet through their mobile devices, and there are many reasons to that. Some of them are improvement in battery life and screen quality that makes up for a better user experience, and that's why people choose to do it. On the left side, you can see the App Store revenue from 2017 to 2021. You can see that the revenue is rapidly growing, up to the insane number of over $85 billion at 2021. On the right side, we can see the Google revenue, the Google Play revenue from 2016 to 2021. It fell short to almost $48 billion. Those numbers are huge, and they come from your applications, from the subscriptions to consumables and non-consumables. So now that I have your attention, what we want to do is we want to build a successful application, captivating, rich, visual. We surely need to use assets. Text only will not do it. We're not at the 90s anymore. We want to show a lot of assets. Ideally, we can hold them all on the phone locally, but that's not very good because those assets change from time to time. And also, if we put them all on the app, it will weigh a lot, and no user will go to the store and download a huge application. So the solution is that we need to get those assets remotely. We need to pull them from the internet to the device when the app goes up. So what is the problem with pulling many assets remotely? First of all, we are building a mobile application. We're using a mobile device. No guarantees that the user has a stable connection. He could be roaming, he could be traveling, he might be even standing at a spot with a bad signal. Getting assets that are not optimized and weigh a lot in terms of file size can be very challenging. When loading a lot of assets at once, if those assets are not optimized in terms of width, height, the file size, and they are not optimal for the containers we're going to put them in, the device needs a lot to render those and fit them into the smaller container. This can cause performance issues. Since it takes a lot of resources from the device to decode and render and put those into the container, you might end up with what you can see in these screenshots. Blanks, holes, and long progress that will finally show the image, but this is not a good user experience. Some applications support orientation change when I switch my phones between landscape and portrait. How do we handle this? Do we keep an asset for each orientation? Do we take the same asset and put it between portrait and landscape? Do we stretch it? Do we shrink it? Do we crop it? Do we fit it? How do we handle this? It might not look so good if we stretch it actually because the container changes between portrait and landscape. And of course, one of the biggest issues we have as mobile developers, there are many screen sizes. It doesn't matter if it's iOS, the problem is less severe there, or Android, where we have tons of screens actually. We have many screens. The asset size between small phone and tablet is very different. Do we need to create and pull an asset for each use case, for each screen size? What about device pixel ratio, or DPR for short? Do we download for each DPR a new asset? Those questions are questions that needs to be asked. How do we optimize the media for those use cases? And if the assets are not optimized in terms of file size, as we just said, this means that we're pulling more bytes from the internet, which means that the device modem works more, which means that we are draining the battery. Moreover, if the user is not on Wi-Fi, it might charge him extra costs. We surely want to use some kind of cache mechanism where we keep the assets we already got locally. We don't want to pull the same asset over and over again. If the asset weighs a lot in terms of megabytes, that means that the app is getting oversized and might actually get deleted because it captures too much space on the device. Rendering big assets requires memory. There is so much memory that a device has, and if we try to render a lot of assets at once with a big size, we might run into memory issues. While some devices have more memory and might handle this scenario, others might crash due to this issue and might run out of memory. And since we're pulling assets remotely from the internet, we are dependent on how far are we from the server physically. The closer we are to the server, the faster we will get the asset, and vice versa. If you look at this picture, the guy at Australia, it will take him much longer to get the asset from our endpoint, which is based in Europe. So physical distance does matter. So we talked about the issue. We showed that loading many assets without optimization can cause delays in loading page speed. It can cause performance issues or even crashes. But why all that is important? Does the loading speed of a landing page or any page in the app is really that important? Does it make a difference if we make our app more optimized and run faster? The answer to that is definitely yes. 100 milliseconds delay in page load can result in 7% reduction in conversion. When I say conversion, I mean that a user took something from your e-commerce, for example, and put it into his cart. Or we actually managed to get a visitor to become a paying user or a subscribed user. Take this number, multiply it by 10, and what you get is 1 second delay in page load can result in 70% reduction in conversion. This is according to a study by Akamai. And also, a 1 second delay can cause 20% drop in traffic. It can also lead to 11% decrease in page views. And lastly, it can lead to a 16% decrease in customer satisfaction. Now, I'm here today to talk to you about improving your media optimization and improving your app overall performance. We are not talking about tens of seconds of improvements. We are talking small numbers. Even milliseconds can be meaningful. Those 3 slides that I just showed are by a Google study. So now that we stated the problem and why it's important to us to optimize our media, I want to show you how we can achieve this. The first thing we need to do is improve our loading speed. We want our page to load faster in an optimized way, and this will improve the experience of the entire app. To do that, we can start with the following. Reduce the asset size by resizing it. Reduce the width and the height. We don't need 4K images when presenting image feed or thumbnails. We can also reduce the quality. If we don't show the image in full size, we can compress it and decrease the quality, but still get a good looking image. And lastly, we need the right format for each platform. iOS, for example, from our iOS 11 and above, started supporting HEIC by hardware. This means that HEIC, or HEIC, is the optimal format. It will weigh less and it will be rendered much faster. For Android, it's a bit more complicated. In 4.2.1, they started supporting WebP. But recently, Android 12 and 13 started supporting AVIF, which is an amazing format, and it should be used if you can, because it weighs less, and it's compressed better, it looks better, and it weighs less. All those things that I just mentioned, decreasing dimensions, format, and quality compression, will lead to a lighter asset. And then it would be easier for the device to load it and for our app to get a much better performance. So let's take the scenario. We downloaded an image now from the internet, we presented it to the user, he decides to move to another screen or send the app to the background and open it again. Do we download the image all over again? Of course not. We will use some kind of cache mechanism. So once we download an asset, it's saved on our device, and we can load it locally next time we need to show it to the user. But since we're keeping this asset on the device, we want it to be optimized so it doesn't capture a lot of space on the user's device. We want it to be optimized and weigh and be a light asset. Responsive. So we want to be able to get the same asset in different size. For different orientations, for example, or different containers. We might show the same asset, but in different containers. We want the same asset in the most optimized way, small in size, for better bandwidth usage, device storage, and device performance. Content Delivery Network, or CDN for shorts, is an extremely important mechanism. This means that there is a grid of servers all around the world that we cache our deliver assets on them once we get them for the first time. This means that the second users that asks for the same assets, it will be delivered to him much faster since the distance between the users and the specific CDN server is shorter than the main endpoint. We can see in the screenshot that unlike the previous one, we have all those CDNs spread around the world, and the distance between the users and those CDN servers is much shorter, which means that the users will get the assets much faster. Some of us might have a website which presents the same assets as our mobile application, but desktop design is very different from application. The size of the assets may vary, depends on the platform. We need the same image, but in different size. Keeping multiple instances with different sizes for the same asset is a good solution. It would be even better if each device would know exactly what asset in what size to pull. So now that we have seen what the challenge we're facing, we talked about the implications of what could happen if we're not optimizing, and we showed the solution, let's get a bit practical and see some code and how we can achieve better performance. So what I did is I built a small demo app. This demo app uses a library that's called Cloudinary that me and my team built. It connects directly with your cloud at Cloudinary and allows you to do multiple transformations on an image. Now, what do I mean by transformations? I want to show you first. I built an array of images. You can see that each image is presented twice: tiger, lion, rabbit, dogs, and so on and so on. One image is purely a URL. The other one has a transformation to it. These transformations is modifications that we make on an image to create the optimizations we just talked about. Let's run the app for the first time and then start implementing some transformations and show how we can improve the optimization of the image. So I'm quickly going to run this application. Okay. And what we're going to see is an image feed. We can see that on the left side, we have the original image. And you can see that the gray text below it says the size of that image. On the right side, we have the modified image. Nothing happened to it yet. And now we're going to start implementing some transformations to it. The first thing I want to do is I want to add quality. I want to ask my tool to give me automatic quality and show me exactly how he can compress the image for me. With that, I'm going to add a format as well. In this case, I'm going to use AVIF. Why AVIF? Because I'm using Android API 33, which means this is Android API level 13. I am allowed to use AVIF. So let's run this and see what happens to the image. As we can see, we already got some better weight. If the original tiger weighted over 280 kilobytes, we already managed only by quality compression and format to down it to 170. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to resize the image. This image is big. I don't need it that big. I have a small container. I want to present it as a thumbnail. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize it. I'm going to, one second, I'm going to call resize, and I'm going to resize it. I'm going to create it into a thumbnail, and I'm going to give it a width of 500. You can see that I didn't specify a height. This means that I'm telling the tool, look, I'm only giving you the width, sorry. You are in charge now of making it in the same aspect ratio as the image is, which means I'm not specifying the height. You will calculate it yourself. Let's run this and see what happens. So just by changing the width and getting much less pixels, I've managed to down the size of the image to 1/10 of what it was. If the tiger started as a 280, I'm already at 29 kilobytes. If the lion started at 722, I am down to 26 kilobytes. So I'm already optimizing. I reduced the dimensions as we talked. I compressed the quality. I used the right format. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to use the DPR. I want to give the device pixel ratio as it should be. So I'm asking my tool to give me the DPR automatically. And as you can see, this is done automatically on all images because I'm using the same transformation object on all the dual or the second images. So image number 2, the tiger, image number 4, the lion, and so on and so on. This transformation is working on all of them and is doing the same thing. It's optimizing them according to what we just said: dimensions, format, quality compression, and device pixel ratio, or DPR for shorts. So I just showed you how we can optimize an image feed, and if we can reduce the size of the image, we can compress quality, we can show format. The next thing I want to show you is that this tool that we build is more than just optimizing image. We can also enhance images and give it some extra things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a single image, and I want to show you what else we can do about it. So I'm going to move to the next screen. The first thing I want to show you is when we built this library, we wanted to make it easier for you. So we built a widget called CLD image widget, and all you need to give it is the name of the image. It's called the public ID, and the transformation. We just saw how we build transformations, and you can build those transformations and it will implement them directly on the widget. So right now we're not doing anything, but let's say I don't like this image big. I want to cut the line. I want a square of 800 on 800. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a resize crop. I'm going to give it a width and a height this time because I want a full square, and I want it to be 800 on 800. Let's see what happens. Very nice. So I got a square as I wanted of the lion, but it's not so good actually, because the face of the lion are getting cut. I actually lost one here. It doesn't look that good. I would expect, if I wanted an image like this, the face of the lion to be in the center. How can I achieve that? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to ask my tool for gravity auto, which means I'm asking it to detect the object, the main object in the photograph or the image automatically. So setting this up would give me this result. Much better now, since the face of the lion are in the center, and I'm quite happy about it. The next thing I want to do, I want to make it into an avatar. I want to make it a full circle. This used to be hard back in the days with old apps. It became much easier to do now. But it's even easier to do it with this tool. All I need to do is I'm calling round corners. And since I don't know the height of the container, since the container might change between different screen sizes, I'm going to give it round corners max. I'm telling it, look, you do the calculations. I'm not going to do them for you. Please give me a full circle. And when I save this, I get a perfect circle. There are also many other things that you can do, such as effect. So if I call this Sepia effect, this will give the image a more vintage look. So we lost some colors and we got some more vintage look. And let's say I don't like that one and I want to use another artistic filter called Ukusai. So that will give my lion a more pinkish way. And there are other enhancements that you can put on the image. One of them is called the Just Improve. This will improve the image colors and sharpness. So when I save this, we get this. Now, those are just few of the enhancements and optimization you can do on an image. I encourage you to visit our documentation where you can see there are dozens and dozens of transformations that you can perform on a single image. There are two more things I want to show you in this live coding. When we go back, we can see that the images are not being pulled from the internet again. This is due to a cache mechanism that we implemented. And that's why we need optimized image, because we don't want to save an almost 1 megabyte image since it's so small. We want the optimized version of it, which weighs 26 kilobytes. One more thing I want to add. In this entire session, we talked about assets, resources, and mainly images. But that's not the only case. Assets or visuals can also be video. And this is really important since this library supports video as well, which means that all of the things that you've seen, quality compression, format, dimension changing, optimizations, and many other things that are related to video, such as intro, outro, subtitles, and many other things can be implemented using this library. So it doesn't work only on images, it will work on videos as well. So that was it for the coding part, and we have just seen practical tools of how to achieve better application performance. Next, I want to show you a real-life example. Just Eat is a food delivery company who mainly works at the UK and Australia through an app and a website you can order food on. I don't know if you heard of it, we use it here at Israel as well, but that's what their app looks like. To improve their user experience, Just Eat optimized their assets using the library I've just shown you, which cut their page loading speed. In the following screenshots from their app, you can see image feed, where you can scroll between different restaurants. You can see that the screen holds multiple assets. Those assets use the techniques that we have just seen, the dimension changing, the format optimization, the DPR, and the quality compression to achieve better performance. The menu screens offer different sizes of images, more thumbnail style. We can see the round corners and even a border around them. This is all done through the tool. By optimizing the menu assets, Just Eat increased the menu usage, loading time, and page views. On the left, we have a specific dish menu where we can see the same asset from the menu screen we just saw as a thumbnail, but in bigger size, without losing quality. On the right screenshot, we can see that the same dish presented in Just Eat's website. Same asset, different size. Everything is optimized in terms of dimensions, format, and quality. So what I just showed you is a tool we created at Cloudinary, and it can help your application improve the delivery time by up to 60% and the data usage by up to 80%. The library I've just shown you through the live coding is written in Flutter, what you've just seen in Dart and Flutter. But it's also written in more than 15 other languages and frameworks. So a little wrap up. We talked about why even develop mobile apps? And then what was the challenge we're facing? Why does it matter? And what is the solution? I gave you some practical tools through the live coding I showed you on how to optimize your media. And with that, your entire application performance. The important thing to remember that media optimization done right can improve your application's conversion rate, traffic, and customer satisfaction. I want to thank you for attending and listening, and I hope you learned something and have some practical tools to take with you after this session. If there are any questions, I'll be taking them through the chat now. Back to you, Alan.
Hi, I'm back. That was awesome. This presentation, this package, this library, I didn't know it, and I'm very impressed with this how complete it is, and this all functional very good. And thank you. So we have some questions here. So let's start. There's a question that so big, and we will divide it in two messages. That is, how do you save local photo when you download when you first time from backend, and the future you don't want to download them. And the continuation, cache network image only store data when the app is running after library lose the data.
So, first of all, I did it back when I had an interview. Actually, I was interviewing for a company and I built my own cache mechanism. It's not that hard, actually. And if you want to save assets locally, you can easily do that by saving them on the disk itself. But it's something that we don't usually do because, as I said in the presentation, assets tend to change from time to time. If the asset is static and never changes, we usually hold it on the app itself. We don't do it with many assets, but we usually hold it on the app itself. If the asset is coming remotely, that means that we don't need to keep it for a long time. We keep it for one session. That's usually why we're keeping it only for one session and then we're losing it. That's exactly the second part of the question. The package that was shown there is a great package for caching, and it does it only for one session because it understands the need. We don't need to keep these assets forever. We need to keep them for a certain session. Once the app is closed, we probably need to pull the assets again. Think of applications that you know, such as TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. When you load the app, you get a certain feed. If you close the app and load it again, you get a completely different feed. There's no point in saving what you just saw from the previous session. I hope this answers the question.
Great, great. So the next one is about the format. The image format AVIF has the same quality than JPEG.
Okay, so AVIF is relatively new. JPEG and JPEG were back from when I was studying at the university, actually, and even before that. And AVIF is relatively new. It's compressed better than JPEG, which means that it will weigh less. And the quality, according to what I've seen and checked, I'm not going to say it like it in general, was much better. But again, there are things to think of here. This is really dependent on the image. Some images in, let's say, WebP, for example, might look worse than in JPEG. And same goes for AVIF. Some images that might not be compressed correctly might weigh more than JPEG. But in overall, AVIF is a better format in terms of weight and in terms of quality.
Great. So the next one, is it bad to keep our images with normal image asset if you consider images from the database?
It's not bad, it just depends how you save them. And if you optimize them before. I use some of the apps that I've built are using databases as well to keep images. We're keeping some kind of record on things or users or whatever, but we're keeping the images locally because we need them for a second run or whatever reason it is. And as long as you optimize your assets before saving them to the database, it doesn't matter. You can keep them on a database. That'd be great. But make sure that they are optimized. So for example, if we go back to the live coding and we take the Lion example, you wouldn't want to save the raw Lion the way it comes from the internet in 722 kilobytes. That's huge. That's a huge image and you don't need it. Well, maybe you do. And if you do, keep it that way. But usually when we're presenting in mobile, we present images in a smaller way. So we want to reduce the dimensions, we want a better, and of course we want an optimal format and compressed quality in a way that the image doesn't get hurt, it still looks good. So if you keep it that way after you optimize your image on a database, it would be great. And yes, I've been using cache network image as well, by the way, as part of my widget. We are caching using that. I'm not going to build a whole new cache system again.
Great, great. I have a question, but I will ask in final at the end. So the next question is transformation API in a public package.
It's called Cloudinary Flutter or Cloudinary Dart if you don't want to use our widgets. And of course, it's public. As I said, it's also posted in more than 15 other languages, including Android, Java, iOS, Swift, Vue, React, Angular, and many other backends such as PHP, .NET, Ruby, and more. I encourage you to go to the Cloudinary repository. If it's not posted, I will post a link. And it's public. go to Cloudinary/documentation, and you can find all the information that you can about transformations and which optimization you can run. And there are many other things that I didn't show, like add-ons that can transcript videos and get you a full subtitles if you need them, that can make you an intro, an outro, overlays, watermark, many other things. It's public and you can use it, and feel free to go and see for yourself what are the capabilities of this tool.
Good. So the next one, can you summarize shortly the two packages for optimizing our image?
Basically, what I tried to show in this presentation, that it's a DIY. You can do it yourself. You don't need any tools or packages. What I've shown you, as part of me coming from Cloudinary, is the tool that we build to make those optimization much easier. You could easily do the resizing of images, compression, and other things like DPR through the device itself. It has its own tools. In iOS, for example, we can use the image kit and then perform all kinds of optimizations before we even upload it. By the way, this is something that we also offer as part of our library. You can make pre-processing changes to the image before uploading it to the cloud. So it will weigh less even when you get it on the cloud. But I don't think there are certain tools or packages that I would put together. My library, the one that I showed you, is amazing to do those things. But everything that I've done, you can basically do yourself. It's not that hard. It just requires some code and understanding of images.
Great. So the next one, is it possible to use this library without storing images in Cloudinary Cloud?
Yes. We also have an option to fetch URLs. You will have to register because otherwise you cannot use the library. But if you don't want to store the images on the Cloudinary cloud, you can use a fetch method, which means that for each URL, you're giving a full URL. We will handle it for you. We will get that image. We will do all the transformations and optimizations and enhancements that you would like. You won't have to use a public ID on the Cloudinary cloud. You would just have to use the fetch method.
So, great. So the second one is more the suggestion. This is a good example on fetching image. Any suggestion on optimization while you're selecting, holding, and uploading images?
This is the per store, actually. I just mentioned it. Yes, of course. If we upload an asset and we know how we're going to use that asset next, I mean, if I'm uploading that lion to the cloud and I'm going to use that lion next, and I know I'm going to use it as a thumbnail, there's no point in uploading it in 4K. Part of our library is a pre-processing module where we can ask to pre-process and do things before we even upload it to the cloud, which means that I can take this lion image, for example, I can reduce its size, I can change its format, I can compress its quality, and instead of uploading a 1 megabyte image, I would do all those optimizations that we just talked about and upload 100 kilobyte image. And it would take much less. Think about dating apps where users upload their profile images. And we do have those use cases. You want to give the user the ability to upload a profile image, but a good one. I mean, it's an optimized one in terms of size, in terms of quality, in terms of DPR, everything that we just showed. So we don't want it to upload the 4K and then it charge them extra cost. And we know that upstream is usually really slow compared to downstream. We want to give those optimization even before we upload. And this is a great question. Yes, we definitely need to make optimization before we upload. All those things that I said about getting images can relate to when you are uploading an images. And again, our library gives the ability to pre-process those images and then upload them to the cloud.
Great. So there's so many other questions, but about the time I will will take some. So that's next one. So what about vector images and Flutter SVG pictures? Has a lot of loading time, etc.
That's a great question. But since we are not the one, I'm not the one developing Flutter. I wish I would be part of the team, but I'm not. I can't take care of how SVG picture works on Flutter. And I think it's more device specific, actually. I know that it's not optimized yet. I know that the widget doesn't work very well yet. I've been playing it myself. By the way, at the library that I've just showed you, we're also supporting SVG format completely, if you want to use that. but we can't control how the widget or how the device or how the framework actually renders those SVGs and why it takes a long time. This is not part of what we do, unfortunately.
Understand. So the next one. So how to best optimize before sending image and support save multiple image. I think is
Okay.
this is
So we're talking about keeping an asset with multiple variations. There is something at our library called versioning. So we can keep the same asset, but with different versions or with different sizes or with different formats even. And then we can deliver it specifically to where we need. Because Android and iOS, for example, does not work with the same format. As I mentioned in the session earlier, iOS would work with HIC, where Android depends on the version, but let's say we have 12 plus would work with AVIF. And we need to keep, the same image, but in two different states. This is something that the tool takes care for us and actually caches those images on a CDN, which means that if we have Android and iOS users and the one pulls HIC, the other one pulls AVIF, the CDN will keep cache for both. So next users with Android or iOS that would ask for those same images would get them much faster because we're keeping versions of the same asset.
I got it. So I think there's two more answers question about optimizing it. So the last one for the time and we finish. So
Yes.
how
So
to optimize GIF image?
I'm taking it, so I guess we don't have much time left. So GIF format. GIF format is something that we've been working on. It's fully supported by the library. You can try it, format GIF, it's supported. But how to optimize it? That is a great question. GIF already comes in a bad quality because it's GIF. It's a series of images and they come in a really bad quality. So I wouldn't try to optimize it even more than I can. Again, it depends on the container I'm going to present it in, and then I can choose the dimensions and choose the quality, which doesn't change much, but because again, GIF is in bad quality. There are also other formats that I would use when talking about animations. There is a WebP, which is animated WebP. I know that animated AVIF is not supported in Android yet, so I wouldn't try that. I know there are third libraries that use that format, but as an official support, there's no official support in AVIF yet, which is animated AVIF. But again, optimizing GIF, there's not much to do there besides the fact that we can reduce the width and height, depends on our container. So if we have a big GIF and we want to put it into a small container, I would resize it and make sure that I'm giving the right size so the GIF doesn't take much space.
So great. So thank you for all this content and the content delivery you shared with us. And thanks so much for your time too.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you. I had a blast.
Okay.
Bye-bye.